Okay. Hey, Sarah, how are you
Hey,
today?
Sherry. Good.
This is
How are you?
I'm so excited. I want to get started. But this is our third episode, and we're calling ourselves
Bookin'
Book
It.
It. All right, and here we are. And so today we're talking about a book. I'll let you lead off.
Yeah, we're talking about Barbara Kingsolver's The Bean Trees this week. So this is our little exploration into fiction this week. So yeah, I read a lot of fiction, but for Sherry, this is kind of a new territory.
Yes. Doesn't like it. Doesn't like it. So it's hard for me. This was a good book, but it was hard. Okay,
Yeah,
go ahead.
yeah. Well, do you want to tell us a little bit about Barbara Kingsolver
Oh,
and
sure.
what you found out
I'll
about
try to be
her
really.
and about your location that you're in right now.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for asking. Okay, I will start, and I'll try to be brief. Barbara Kingsolver has a very, you know, long life and a lot of work. So she has 16 books, and The Bean Trees was her very first novel. In fact, the interesting story about that was she was a graduate and had gotten, I think, just gotten her master's from the University of Arizona in biology and eco, ec- something else. I mean, it was science based and ecology something. Anyway, and she was writing as a science writer for the University of Arizona, and then started doing journalism. Then moved on to doing some freelance stuff. And in the meantime, she was busy writing this. She's a researcher, so she was busy writing this book about mining in Arizona and these people there. And on the side, she was married at the time, had a small child, and was just writing the bean trees in her closet at night by herself, just little by little. Well, the book on mining that she had written, she'd run it by somebody who was interested in her work, and the person couldn't get a publisher for it. So as a last ditch, she's cleaning the house one day, and she's got two options. Do I keep the bean trees, or do I toss it and just abandon it entirely? And she decided to run it by this person who had been interested in her work, and it became her first published novel. And yeah, so she's written a lot since then. And she's, I will say though, just I'll stop here in a minute, but the reason I'm here is because today The Bean Trees is a book about finding, the major theme of it is finding beauty in some of the more obscure places, or maybe ugly would be one word. And this is an urban farm here in Des Moines, Iowa, called the Sweet Tooth Farm. And it was a piece of city blight, really. It was owned by the city. They weren't doing anything with it. And this woman advocated for several years to turn it into an urban farm, and is now feeding this community produce during the months of the year when she can grow, and feeding a diverse community.
So this book, The Bean Trees, this, like Sherry said, this is her first novel, and it starts out in rural Kentucky, where Kingsolver actually grew up herself in rural Kentucky. It centers around a young girl, and she is trying not to end up pregnant, and she's trying to leave Kentucky. Those are her main goals. And she succeeds. She leaves Kentucky. She starts heading west. But when she stops in Oklahoma near the Cherokee Nation because her car breaks down, a Cherokee woman drops a baby in her passenger seat and says, it's her dead sister's baby. There's no one to love and take care of it, and she needs Taylor to take the baby. So Taylor ends up with the baby after all those years trying to prevent having a baby. But anyway, she
Right.
ends up agreeing to it, and eventually her and the baby that she names Turtle make their way to Tucson, Arizona, where once again Taylor's car breaks down, and they end up at Jesus is Lord used tire. And so that's where they end up meeting Maddie, who Taylor ends up finding a job with. And then, they decide to put down roots there. And she meets Luann, who is another native Kentuckian, moved to Arizona, and moves in with her. Luann has also just had a baby and is recently separated from her husband. So the rest of the book just kind of centers around Taylor's new community, new family, new friends, and their struggles, and really just about finding their place in life. And so it's you know, really beautiful that way. Like Sherry said, finding the beauty in unusual places and finding family in unusual places. So yeah, that's a little bit about the book.
It,
So
it's sweeping. I would say it's a sweeping book, and it covers a lot of terms.
it does. And honestly, I think the whole book takes place in less than a year's time. This book takes place. So we cover a lot of ground for these people in a very short amount of time.
I'm going to give away all the storyline for the readers, but we could certainly talk about some of the major themes. I mean, one that I found was the major theme we already mentioned, but what would you say are some other themes?
Oh, you know, I would say um, acceptance is a major theme.
Family, under the definition of family, and I would say mothering. Mothering is
Yes.
a really big a big theme here. What's constitutes good mothering?
Mhm.
And also coming of age, kind of. Taylor is naive, and she's worldly in a lot of ways. She's seen a few things before she leaves Kentucky. She has enough bandwidth to realize she doesn't want to follow in this trajectory, the only one that seems plausible for women to get pregnant. And she leaves.
Mhm.
And her mother, who is a good mother in an unusual setting where there doesn't seem to be a lot of good examples of parenting around her, encourages her to do that. And
Right.
and so she does just hop in this beat up old VW and makes her way west. So I'd say and definitely female friendships. I think that's another key
Mhm.
theme here.
Right. And, you know, women who are able to make it on their own, you know, this is a big struggle for Luann, I think, in the book, is that she had this trajectory where she had the husband and she was going to stay home and raise the kid. I mean, this book is a little bit older, so this is all taking place probably in the 1980s. And I think that's her trajectory. That's what she's expecting. And then things don't work out that way for her. And she struggles with that, that idea that she is no longer on that trajectory. And what does that mean? And is she going to be able to make it on her own? Or is her husband going to show back up, and they're going to be able to get back together the way she planned it? So her confidence is a big deal in this book. And just I don't know, accepting herself the way she is and accepting that she can do it by
Right.
herself is a big deal.
Right. And so the first irony that you mentioned is, so Taylor spent her childhood or adolescence avoiding getting pregnant, and immediately attaches to a child through no
Yeah.
fault of her own. And her choice to keep that child is sort of interesting. At first you're not really clear why she's doing it, other than she sort of felt obligated. But then over time, she becomes a little bit more. She becomes very attached, and she seemed to be avoiding attachment at the beginning of the story, trying to branch out on her own and keep away. But as she becomes more involved and more aware of certain things, like the immigration issue. I mean, she's based now in Arizona and can see firsthand there's a problem, that people are coming over the border and they're leaving behind violence, which she doesn't understand when she first gets there. And she doesn't have any clue about what's going on in Guatemala, for example, where Esteban and Esperanza are from. So as she becomes more aware, she becomes more attached. And the funny point, there's a point in the story where the women flip. And I think that's how it is with friendships. Sometimes you're rallying along, and your role sometimes is to be the cheerleader. But then when you're down, what does a friend do? They rally on your behalf, and they come in and they
Right. Right.
you know
Yeah, there's kind of a big scene, which I don't know if it hits as big when it starts, but where Luann and Taylor have been living together and sharing these household responsibilities. And Taylor is very much this free spirit, and she's been like, I'm independent and I don't need this support network, and here she finds herself falling into these routines with Luann, where Luann is doing the cooking and Taylor is out making the money, and then maybe Taylor's watching the kids, and it's very domestic, and Taylor pushes back against it, and she's like, we are not a family. And Luann's like, well, we kind of are, basically. Yeah. And it takes a while for Taylor to accept that fact that yes, they are a family. But I think then too, seeing Esteban and Esmeralda and their struggles in their native country, and how they have been torn apart from everything they knew in their family, whether they wanted it or not. I think that is maybe a big a message to her, showing like, hey, not everybody gets to have the things they want, and not everybody gets to have this family, and why am I throwing this away? So yeah. I mean, it's very interesting to see all the different cultures here that are coming together, and that's something I really enjoyed, and something that I think we can all learn a little bit about, is watching these two women from Kentucky have gone to Arizona, and it's a very different life than what they were used to. And then also seeing the immigrants come in and interact with the American culture, and also with the just the Cherokee Nation, and getting some of that culture too. So it's just really, it's in a way, it's very American, the melting pot kind of idea.
It's very American. Right. So here's my question as a nonfiction reader trying to read fiction, and I put this out there to the millions of people who will see this episode. And by the way, I ask you to subscribe and hit the bell, because that way you'll be posted about our next podcast when we pick another book and we discuss it in depth. But fiction requires you to really start to see the world through this author, and to start to sort of have your own little bells go off when you see some of those connections to things. And do you do that as a reader? I find that very difficult.
Yeah, I think so. It just depends on the book, and sometimes I think I think about it more after I finish reading the book, maybe, depending on how engrossing the book is. So yeah, and with Barbara Kingsolver especially, I know this is your first book by her, but I've read most of her books, I would say. And with her, I always notice the tie-ins with nature, and with different nationalities, and she's very conscious of painting that picture and showing how people are, one with their environment and one with their culture, and sometimes those things butt up and mesh together, and we all have to figure out how to get along and work together. So I really appreciate that from her. But one thing that I think is very interesting that you say about the characters, though, is as I'm reading the book, I think to myself, if it was in person, I don't know if I would like either of these characters, like Taylor or Luann. I don't actually know if I would like them in real life.
Interesting. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. I don't even want to think about that, because I don't know what that says about. But anyway, that's an interesting point, Sara. Well, so in closing, so you've read all the books. I have not. First Kingsolver book, and I noticed on her list of 16 published books that there's another book that actually extends the story of Taylor and Turtle. I forget what it's called.
Pigs in Heaven.
Okay, yeah. And then did you read the Lacuna?
Yes, I did.
Okay, because that was a pivotal book, and it really got her a lot of recognition. She considers it, they're touting it on her website as one of her best.
Huh.
And
I wouldn't have said that.
Okay. So anyway, I don't know if we were to read another one. But we're running out of time, so we've got to segue. So this was fun. I mean, it's a book I'm glad you recommended. And fiction is hard. Fiction is hard. So you stretched me, my friend. We are friends. We are family. We are not Taylor and Luann, but we are family in our friendship. So that said, what's going on with you these days?
Well, we just took a trip to Minnesota to just kind of get away. So we went up to two harbors, it's north of Duluth, and stayed like right on Lake Superior, and just kind of hiked and biked
Nice.
and just got away from everything. And so that was really great. So, but of course now I'm back here, and my appraiser can't get the appraisal back in time, and the title company is not, can't find the abstract, and now I'm back to the real estate world of nobody, you gotta poke everybody and tell them to do their job. So,
Yeah, yeah. Wow.
but what do you got going on?
Well, so I have not been going anywhere, which is really bumming me out. I'm going to Iowa Falls um, the first weekend of November for a girls' outing. We're going to Distance in a new house that one of my friends owns there. Distance. We'll be very far apart from each other, just just a couple of other gals and me,
Mm-hmm.
and do what older ladies do, which is sit around and cackle. And then, other than that, though, it's been a weird year. Obviously, I mean, my business is it's a niche thing, and so I never know when things are going to come in. But this year it's been kind of good. So I've got some stories in progress, and I'm hoping to work pretty shortly with Broadlands Hospital and do a little brief video for them, a history video. That's on my work docket for this fall, and it's fall, and it's my favorite month, October.
Oh yeah, I love October. So actually, and so funny, we took our little trip and I didn't even manage. I had I had my 10-year anniversary. So because
Oh,
got married in October because it's such a beautiful, beautiful
oh,
month. So
congratulations, Sarah.
thank you.
Well, again, everybody subscribe to Bookin' It, because Sarah and I are determined with 2021, which is gonna be a better year. It's got to be better than this year has been. We're going to keep this at it and
Yeah.
do more Booking It episodes, and we'll let you know. I'll be writing a post. I'll tell you to link to. I listen to the Bean Trees on audiobooks, and I'll provide a link below to audiobooks. And what else? But if you
Mhm.
have anything to say about this book, please comment below and let us know what you think. Are you more of a Taylor? Are you more of a Luann? Are you do you have friendships that have become like family to you? Is that how the world is for you?
Are
Tell us
you
what
a
you think.
fiction reader or nonfiction reader? Tell us about
Oh yeah, good
that.
question. Good question. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And Sarah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Sherry. We'll see you next time.